Yeah, I'll wait till he comes back. Yeah. How are your eyes? Right. Good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll call to order this meeting of the Town Council. The first item of business is approval of the minutes of December 2nd.
Motion to approve the minutes of the December 2nd, 2021 Town Council meeting, unless anybody has any comments.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The next item of business is announcements. I'd like to say this evening to give you my and our best wishes for Christmas and New Year's, which are upcoming and will occur before we meet again as a council. With that in mind, I'd like to remind you that we are open in the town hall until noon on Thursday next week. And then Thursday afternoon and Friday, the town hall will be closed. The public hearing for the revised flag policy ordinance proposal is to be scheduled this evening. It's expected to be scheduled in January 2022. We expect that it will be on January 6th of 2022. The draft policy is going to be received under Old Business 3 later during the meeting. Finally, the governor has issued a set of directives regarding assembly, which I would encourage you. I will not try to recite them here. They are just released this afternoon, and please be cognizant of those. We will apply them as needed in the town hall. Generally speaking, gatherings of more than 250 people are different than gatherings of less than 250 people. So since this assembly is limited by the occupancy of this room, we would fall under the lower requirements. But take a look at those, and we'll have more to say on the website and elsewhere in the future. Any other announcements that need to be made? All right, next item of business is department head reports. We have 6. The fire department, town clerk, police department, the assessor, the building inspector, and the town administrator.
Motion to place on file unless anybody wants to pull anything to discuss.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Are there any that one wishes to discuss? All right, thank you. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thanks. The next item is old business, and it's a proposal for the extension of Special Directive Number 5.
Motion to extend the Special Directive 5.
Second.
This is the extension of the state of emergency in the town of Little Compton in consonance with the state requirements, or the state executive orders. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you. The next item of business is Newport Mental Health, and we have 2 representatives from that organization with us this evening. They are attending to answer questions regarding its proposal, that is Newport Mental Health proposal, to use some of the Little Compton designated ARPA funds toward a mental health proposal that would benefit our residents. And we'd ask that the gentlemen who are here would come and make that presentation for us. Good evening. Thank you.
I'm Jamie Lehane. I'm the CEO of Newport Mental Health. We are the community mental health center that is a private nonprofit but state designated counseling center that serves the 82,000 residents of Newport County, of course, including Little Compton. We're the first federally designated certified behavioral health clinic, which means that we've been able to expand our services. Just 2 years ago, we had about 80 employees. struggled to meet payrolls. And thanks to a new federal program that we hope is going to spread across Rhode Island and the United States, we've now doubled our size to about 160 employees and have been moving, first of all, outgrown our physical space capacity, but also is propelling us to do what we really think always should be done, is bringing services, emotional supports to kids, families, to older adults out in the community, not just in a clinic-based service. So we did put in a proposal that we hope with the ARPA, or American Rescue Act, plan, federal money that has come to the state of Rhode Island, that the town of Little Compton may see its way to provide us some support, one, to build a new kind of central access center where we now allow people to come Monday through Friday. You don't need an appointment. You walk in our door. When you need help, we need to be there right when people need those services. And then we're looking to put small counseling centers as satellites throughout the county because, frankly, we underserve your community. I think we probably only served 30 or 40 kids and adults from Little Compton last year. And as we all know, and it's brought to our attention with all the stress and that's going on the past 20 months with the COVID epidemic, that people's emotional well-being has been greatly affected. So we are now doing things, and we're here tonight to also offer any supports we can provide to your schools, and that we've already been in contact with your senior center, that we have some resources to be able to provide the kind of supports which may be unique to Little Compton. So we're not coming in and telling you what we need to do, but would like to enter into a dialogue about those things. So specifically, we're asking for $50,000 of your ARPA allocation to help us add to our campaign to build a new access center or main center where people can walk in anytime. We also have 24-hour crisis services, by the way, and a crisis line that's available to your residents, and or to use the dollars to have a little space here in town, if that is something that the council and the residents here would like.
Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you. Questions here?
This is available tax specific to Little Compton? You're looking for a donation from the town?
We are requesting an allocation from the city of Newport and the other 5 Newport County towns. And if you were to dedicate it, you could choose to restrict it as you may see. We're asking for a donation so that we can just build our capacity. Right now, I have staff that don't have offices to see clients, but we're also looking to probably not build, but lease space in these satellite areas.
Okay.
So you can go either way. We'd like a general donation or allocation, if you would.
So you served approximately 30 or 40 kids last year?
No, I think that's a combination of children and adults. Yes, sir.
So Jamie, if this happens down here, you lease a space, the employees down there, how long will they be down there, Monday through Friday?
Well, I think we'd have to size that based on what we would see the need. I don't know whether there's enough volume to be 5 days a week. I know we're going to be working some hours in the senior center without any support, just through our existing funds we have right now. So I think we'd have to see what the need is. And part of that is for us to be more present and available and to do a better job communicating to the residents of Little Compton that they can access care from us.
Those 30 individuals that you serviced, how did they come in contact with you? How did you find them when they found you?
I would expect that people have just, we've been around for 55 years. This is my development and communications director, Sir Edward McPherson. They've put my lovely face in the paper and on the news more times than I'd like. So we've been actually trying to do a real community education and campaign. I would hope it's because we've been trying to get the message out out there, that when you're struggling with an emotional problem or a substance use problem, that we're the place you can turn to 24 hours a day. So I couldn't specifically answer, because I'm actually not aware who those 30-plus people are. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Will you be having a satellite office in Little Compton, maybe once a week, to make it easier for them to have access?
Exactly. Now, we used to do that. Newport County, we're Newport County Community Mental Health. We just shortened the name. We're the same organization. We used to have a satellite office here, and we had a counselors here that were here certain hours of the week. That's kind of what I'm expecting we should be stepping back into now that we have a little better operating resources and support than we had over the past years.
So where is this new facility going to be located? Are you going to build a new facility?
Yes, that's our hopes. We very generously have been supported by our local Newport County Van Buren Charitable Foundation. We've already had a real innovative architectural firm not design the actual structure of the building, but to do what they call a strategic facility plan to figure out where would we like to be, what kind of setting, what is the use of the space, and we have some renderings that Edward has brought with him. The model that we are hoping to choose is a concept called the epicenter, where we would have one main facility, probably across the bridge on the Aquidneck Island, but then we would have these kind of branch satellites, just like a bank would have in our different communities, including Little Compton. So that's the kind of conceptual design, and then the material I think we attached there, you'll see under the different scenarios that we've been working with our board and our strategic planning, that the number one is that epicenter model, and that's kind of what I'm describing with you tonight, where we'd want to have basically be involved in our communities where and when needed.
So these satellite communities, facilities, are they going to be new built, or are you going to use something like the community center?
Well, I think for the things like working in the seniors, we'd be co-located in your community center or wherever. So we don't need to build where we don't need to build, but we do know that we're in the top of an office park right now, the Aquidneck Office Park. It's not on a bus line, and it is not at all accessible to many of the people we serve, and some of those folks need public transportation. So that's our main impetus to put a new kind of main center somewhere else that's more accessible.
Yeah, well, that was my concern, that if you're asking the town for $50,000, we could use that money in this town a lot, I feel, a lot more fiscally responsibly, but if we have people that use your facilities or can get to your facilities, that was one of my, I won't say objections to it, but
Sure.
I mean, they'd have to drive all the way over to
Yeah.
Newport to get to that facility, and we do, so that was my concern
Right.
about that. And I'd like to ask, I think I saw the school committee chairwoman here. How much do you use these Newport mental health facility, or do they come down to the school and?
I know they have in the past.
Right.
We do have a larger social emotional support network currently in the school, but I know that they have been in touch with the school homes. Professionally, I work with Newport mental health all the time. They're our go-to on all our resource material. We did have a resource guide that was on the town website. I'm assuming it's still there. They're listed as a resource for mental health.
And we have just recently reached out to your school system, to your superintendent, that we actually have new dollars to provide any kind of social emotional support or programming, not with this funding we're asking for tonight, but with some dedicated federal grant money. So we're doing things like in Tiverton. Now, you only have an elementary, lower grade school, but they lost their funding for a alternative program to expulsion. So they're offering the parents and the high school kids, rather than if they get caught with alcohol or drugs or any other kind of behavioral problems, they're being given the offer to go to a program after school in lieu of that we're going to be running for them. What I'm saying is we are open to a dialogue in meeting the specific needs that Little Compton would have, and that's one of the areas that we have current resources, if there's things that we can do to support the younger students in your community. In terms of transportation, one of the things we're trying to fund with other sources of dollars is because we have 24-hour crisis, we actually have licensed clinicians that are available to go out to people's homes or wherever someone's having a problem. And often we have ways to divert those folks from not needing to go to the emergency room. We have a statewide association called Horizon Healthcare Partners. But anyways, we have a behavioral health crisis program where they have beds, and it's a better place. It's really a psychiatric emergency room that specializes when people are having mental health or substance use programs as an alternative to Newport Hospital or going to Fall River. So we're trying to build a transportation system because our rescues can't come offline to go, it's located in East Providence. So we are trying to build a kind of a crisis transportation system you can call and somebody can be there within 15 minutes. So that would take burden off the police as well as the emergency rooms. So we're trying to do as many creative things as we can do. Transportation is a barrier, not only, certainly here, given your location. We recognize that.
Well, just going off the transportation thing, I think there are only 3 communities in the state that don't have regular RIPTA service, and we're one of them. So that is a huge barrier, I think. I was going to ask, are your services administered to people in a needs based? Or is it open to?
As a community mental health center licensed under the state of Rhode Island, and as our new higher level standards, federal standards, we provide services to everybody and anybody from cradle to grave, regardless of whether they're insured, uninsured, or have the ability to pay. Even when we do have insurances now only cover 60 cents on the dollar of what it costs us. But we do have a sliding scale that if people can pay incremental amounts, but we would never not serve someone and don't.
Yeah, well, I think it's amazing. I didn't realize there were so many residents in town. Sorry, I'm not looking at you. I'm trying to speak into the microphone. So
I'm sorry,
trying
sir.
to turn my back to you, but I didn't realize there were so many residents in town that took advantage of your services. So thank you for what you're doing. I think just if we were to allocate some of the funding to your organization, I think I would like to see something here in town, or perhaps something maybe in conjunction with Tiverton that's more accessible to people that live here in Little Compton, because I think that's something that's sorely lacking.
We would love to work with you to do that and make that commitment.
To play off that just for a moment, as you're, I'm sure, aware, the American Recovery Plan funds must be used for one-time expenses. They're not able to be used for operational kinds of costs. So would it be accurate to say that what you're striving to do is assemble some funds that can build this new facility,
right,
thereby freeing what would otherwise be spent on that to do these other kinds of?
Exactly, and to blend under other funding that couldn't be used for capital. One of the most immediate needs is for us to move to the next phase of the architectural work, which, as you know, is not cheap. So that would be a way to be within the one-time category to move us to the next level.
Yeah, I think in our estimation, as we look at how we invest or how we propose to invest American Recovery Plan funds, this is the kind of thing that would be attractive, but under the presumption that, as Councilor Ariati-Moore just said, we have, this is probably sounds familiar, but we have unique needs that are attributable to our distance, the fact that there isn't a bridge, and the fact that we do get service from your organization but
I agree, not enough right now, and that's part of the reason that I'm here personally tonight, to recognize that and to see what we can do to make that better.
all right, any other questions?
How much are you asking Newport to donate?
Newport has unofficial, we've asked for 300,000 because that's the conversation that we've had already with their administration.
Because I assume Newport and Middletown would be the main users of that facility.
Correct.
So I'm not sure percentage-wise, if they're only giving 300 and you want 50,000 from us, I'm not sure that.
Actually, I'm going to correct that. I don't know whether, we got a phone call from them yesterday, and basically they said we didn't ask for enough, and that the governor's office has contacted them because they asked them for more projects. So we actually, whether it went in today or tomorrow, asked them for 20 million to build the whole facility for us, knowing that the city wasn't going to get that, but to give that message through the city up to the state level. We gave them several. We started high and gave them several other alternatives. So our initial formal ask was 300.
Yeah. Well,
And that is the other dynamic that's in place right now. We have been asked as a town to participate in that conversation with the state to say, give us examples of where we can leverage multiple towns' capabilities in one ask so that we can put that money together to do something.
I would just love it if you would, even if you didn't fund us with your money with hard dollars, but together with the other cities and towns say, we would support the state making a capital infrastructure investment in Newport Mental Health and other community mental health and substance use programs like us. We would really appreciate that kind of message up to the governor's office.
All right.
Thank you.
So,
I'll ask that the administrator be part of the conversation as well as we go forward in order to ensure that we are not only talking directly to the person, the entity asking us, but also to those that can leverage funds to give us a bigger impact. Yeah,
yes, I'm just going from my memory here, just to be clear so everyone understands. The American Rescue Plan funds that Little Compton has, is it 1.2 million?
1 point.
So 1.1 million, and again, I jotted down some things, I don't have it in front of me. What we had on here was connectivity, Wi-Fi, the wastewater treatment center we wanted to fix. We wanted to paint the town hall, was on that list. I don't recall what else was on that list. But our townspeople's mental health, I would imagine, would be first on that list, in my opinion. I think we had the money in, don't we, already, or a good portion of it is in?
On hand,
Yeah.
right now, we have just a little bit over 500,000.
About half.
So that, I would just, so everyone knows, you know, if we don't have 10 million or whatever we have. So I wanted to make that clear.
Right. All right. Could I have a motion that says we will fold this Newport Mental Health request into our next American Recovery Plan presentation to the council? And I expect that'll be in January or February that we do that.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Just for clarity for the public, I like a simplistic approach. The allocation of this money, when you read it, it looks like we're supporting a building in a far-off land. But by supporting that building on the island, we're freeing up resources to come back to us.
Yes.
And that stays inside the guidelines of the Recovery Act.
Right. We would not be able, for example, to do the latter. We could only do the former, but given that the plan is that that's how it's going to be executed.
Right.
I think we can, and then we can make it conditional on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Good evening.
All right. Our next item is the flag policy. This is a return of the draft from the working group. The working group consisted of myself, Counselor Iriadi Moore, the town administrator, and the solicitor. And the item before you is that compromise or that second edition of the policy. And the reason that we need to do this is we have changed it materially, and therefore we need to introduce it in a public hearing and decide that public hearing date tonight and use that then as the process by which this version would either move forward or be subject to further discussion. Any questions on that?
I'll make a motion to approve to advertise the flag policy for a public hearing to be held on January 6th, 2022.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I have a discussion. Under applicability, it says display of flags on flagpoles on town property is governed by this policy. I find it ambiguous. I know you just stated you changed it. Maybe the solicitor could help me out on this. I've asked before. What is town property? It was listed on the first version. I don't see it listed here. And to be transparent, I think I'm asking about the school's flagpole, so we don't have to wonder what I'm asking about. So what is town property?
What is town property? Either we purchased it, or for example, this property here, we never purchased this property. This property was just taken by the town hundreds of years ago. So, but some properties we bought, some's been given to us.
I'm sorry, I should have said display of flag poles on town property. I want to be a little more specific, I'm sorry. Not town property. Flag poles on town property. Which specific ones are we talking about?
That I don't know.
Let me answer the fact that when we first proposed this, the listing of flagpoles specifically was a cause of debate as to whether we had purview over those. What this edition tries to do is to reach a point where we say, this is what we intend to do. If that issue arises, if the school, for example, chooses to do something differently, we can deal with that when the time comes. The point is that we have committed to having a flag policy in order to do some other things in town. And that's why we're trying to reach this specific version so as to let us go forward with that.
Yeah, I see it as two different things. Is this town saying that they are in control of the school's flagpole? That's my question to the solicitor. I've asked it before, and I haven't got an answer.
Well, first of all, I don't represent the school committee, okay? I represent the town council.
Mhm.
Although there is some thought that perhaps I do represent them, and there's a case called Johnson versus Pezza. However, this is what the state law says. School committees of several towns in the state shall, in the same manner as now provided for, purchase supplies for the public schools for the committees, purchased for every school in their respective town, not provided with a United States flag, a flag, a staff, and the necessary appliances for the flag. Therefore, whenever the flag staff, and the necessary appliances for the flag of any school shall, from any cause, become unsuitable for further use, the school committee shall in the same manner purchase others in place thereof. So in other words, under 1699, school committees shall purchase a flag, United States flag. 16910, the school committee of the several towns shall cause the United States flag to be displayed upon public school buildings or premises during school hours, if in their best judgment, it is otherwise, at any time they may direct. And the committee shall also establish rules and regulations for the proper care, custody, and display of the flag. And when for any cause it is not displayed, it should be placed conspicuously in the principal room of the school building. So that's what the state law says. The council, I believe, has a template that doesn't say a whole lot except that we're trying to establish a policy. You have to get this in place to then establish the policy. And I believe the council will work with the school committee.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I would entertain a motion to
I already made a
He did, and I
motion.
Put
seconded
this
it.
forward. Okay.
I made a motion.
January 6th.
You got to call for a vote.
Is there any more conversation? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. The vote is 4-1. Thank you. In addition, this evening, a petition was filed by Jenna Magnuski on flag policy. That petition was on the Action Network and speaks to allowing any flags to be flown by citizen request. I would opine that this policy neither promotes nor prohibits that. That discussion can occur at the public hearing, which I think is the proper place for it, given that that's when the public will be able to be in here in a pre-warned state as to the fact that that's what's going to be discussed that evening. The next item of business is to consider filling a vacancy of the fiscal clerk in the finance department.
After interviewing, doing interviews at 6 o'clock today, I'd like to move that we hire Rachel Onright as fiscal clerk for the finance department, as soon as she might be able to come on board.
I'll second it.
Or, or as necessary by the town administrator.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there further discussion? Did she remain with us? No. Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Congratulations to Rachel, and thank you for applying. It looks like a good fit to that position. The next item is a memo from the town administrator updating and offering the plan to show dotted lines currently depicted on tax assessor maps in an overlay for the GIS mapping process. Basically, what has been accomplished is, and I would credit the assessor and the administrator with working this problem diligently, we've been able to create a system by which those properties that have dotted lines on them, those dotted lines are retained in an overlay. The tax map will show the property as it's taxed. And obviously, if someone wishes for those dotted lines to represent subdivisions of their property, then they would need to take that action in order to make that happen. Otherwise, it will simply be an overlay for the assessor's use. Am I correctly reflecting that?
You are. In fact, the assessor's maps are strictly, well, not really, but strictly for the tax assessor's convenience. Gives her the history, tells her how it happened, et cetera. They're not particularly binding in terms of title issues. And that's something that comes up. But what the town is doing is, one, utilizing the new system to have a three-dimensional map. And that's pretty interesting. So you can access the divided lines, correct? Well, Denise can access it.
No, a person using the GIS system will be able to invoke the overlay, just like you could invoke overlays of clouds on your weather app.
Right. So you're correct, that's what's happening.
So this isn't a first step to eliminating the dotted lines.
No, just the opposite. As a matter of fact, what the tax assessor is being proactive and saying, let's get this right. And she's, to her credit, or maybe not, she's inviting people to come in to her office and say, this is what I think my property is. And she's on top of it, so it won't be a lengthy discussion. She's really done the history on most of these matters.
So, okay, motion to place on file?
Yeah, I've got a question. Well, sorry. So are we going to be recognizing the dotted lines until the property owner says otherwise? Or what if they never come into the office to discuss it with the tax assessor?
If they don't come into the office, and if they're taxed as one lot, then that's what happens. They get taxed as one lot. Now, sometimes people might say, well, I think I really have 3 lots. And in my estate planning, I think I want to have 1 lot for one kid, 1 lot for somebody else, 1 lot for me. So then they come and they make their pitch to Denise. Please, would you consider, I think there's enough evidence to support that I got the property in 3 separate deeds, or somebody did. And I'd like to maintain that. Denise is gonna say, most likely, we can do that. But you have to understand now that you have 3 taxable lots as opposed to 1 lot. So there's an economic factor. And then there's a more practical cost, which is sometimes people want to have a survey done and report it. I mean, Carol can't, and so Denise works with Carol, works with Tony, so there's a lot of backstop here, so it can be handled rather well. One of the things that comes up regularly, though, is how much does it cost to have a survey, and do I really want to do that, and are there really 3 lots? But I think this is more information than less information, and I think that's better.
Does assessor want to say anything about this?
I'm grateful that the time of getting
GIS.
point where we have GIS and we can look at it this way.
Okay.
We got a motion, but I don't believe we had a second.
Second.
Any discussion further? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item is to acknowledge the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, DEM, grant request for the town tennis court upgrades has been submitted. Many thanks to Marjorie and to Councilor McHugh for their work on making that happen. It's due tomorrow, and we submitted it yesterday, so we think we're in good shape. The next item is new business. It's a proposal for architectural services that has been received from the town administrator. Consider authorizing the execution of the contract for professional services related to making adjustments to the handicap ramp and other town hall design needs. So, go ahead.
I'll move to approve this. I've used Melissa Hutchinson previously, and she's very good, and she's very frugal with how she uses her time, and her billing practice is much better than other architects I've used, so.
I'll second it, and with a question, can the American Recovery Act funds be used towards this?
They can. It is likely that we'll invest them in the actual construction, given that this might require some approval wickets in the sense of, in order to spend ARPA funds with certainty, the state has established an entity that reviews them for you, and that process takes some time. So depending on, I would imagine, I'll ask the administrator to speak to this, but I would imagine we may wish to expend other funds on this and then use the ARPA funds
Understood.
for the building itself.
Timing is an issue.
Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I mean, as we can recall, last year was approved at, $2 million as well for financing for the purpose of the town hall. So we're gonna look at all the options and, all the projects and see how they are, what are the buckets that we need to tap into to accomplish that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right. All in favor of that motion? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next is communication received from the interlocal trust concerning cyber insurance coverage and changing policies potentially in the future. Basically, what the trust has told us is the degree to which cyber attacks have been successfully occurring has resulted in there being a relative reduction in the number of entities willing to provide cyber insurance coverage. So the trust is taking this on proactively and saying, so how do we get our individual cities and towns to better insulate themselves against these kinds of problems? So there's a questionnaire that we've submitted. They're going to use that questionnaire in order to establish to what degree Little Compton, as compared to any other town, needs particular attention in a particular area. Basic message, though, is that our trust, our interlocal trust, is doing its job for us, and it's telling us that this kind of insurance, the cost of it is going up if it's even available in the future. So we want to be as proactive as possible.
So, no actions needed
No
from us.
actions needed.
Motion to place on file?
Second.
Well, no additional action. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Next is a letter from Brennan Goldner, the commercial manager of South Fork Wind, distributing a draft post-review discovery plan for the South Fork Wind project. I've reviewed this task in some detail. Counselor Mataronis has also in the past had opportunity to look at this. We've agreed that this particular project has little impact, and the things that they're talking about in here don't have any comments that we need to make.
This doesn't have any bearing on the town of Little Compton whatsoever, so I'll make a motion to place on file.
If you would, I would like you to
I'll
move
second it.
to send, for me to send the response requested here back to them saying that.
I'll amend
then
my
place it
motion
on
to include that.
I'll amend my second.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded to respond and then place on file. All in favor?
Aye.
The next item is a copy of comments sent to DEM from public employees for environmental responsibility. That's the title of it, of an entity.
Mr. Chair, I'll recuse myself from that.
Thank you. The issue is being taken with the Ripley's permit that is to be renewed for the Point Club. Would you like to comment on that? Floyd?
Yeah, I'll comment on it. I read this over. I've seen articles about it online and whatnot. This is, was basically initiated by a person that has been button heads with the Point Club for a while. It doesn't really have any bearing on us, and there is a hearing at DEM about the Secana Point Clubs getting their RIPD's permit. So if anybody would like to go up there and discuss it with DEM, or I'm not sure when the hearing is, but I'm sure if anybody wants to go up there and put their 2 cents in, that'd be fine. Other than that, I'll make a motion to place on file.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to place the matter on file. Any discussion? All in favor? Then communication number 4, communication from Friends of the Town Landing, some of whom are sitting in the front row. A group of residents who wish to offer suggestions for the use of donated funds for the Town Landing project, with a letter of understanding being submitted and a spreadsheet. If I'm interpreting your request, I would propose that the council vote to establish a restricted fund to be expended by authority only of the town council for the purposes stated in your memorandum.
I'll
Is that-
second that motion.
Is that, thank you. Does that achieve? what-
Yes, I believe the money is already in possession of the town.
Yes,
And is already in a restricted account.
yes,
The only reason not the only reason, but the reason for the letter of understanding is 50 years from now, 70 years from now, we're all gone.
yes.
I hope by then the money is all gone too, but if it isn't, then there should be some understanding as to why that money was collected and what the purpose of the collection was.
And that's, I chose the wording that I did because this is similar to what we've done for cemeteries, people who contribute funding to maintain cemeteries.
Right.
The same sort of point that you have made in your memorandum. We'd not like to use that for mowing the lawn of the cemetery, but rather to make substantial improvements. And that would be the same kind of direction given in for town meeting.
And the other point is that we are no longer a town committee because no work for this is being done. But we along with other people should be making recommendations as to how that money possibly could be used. And we see ourselves making recommendations for 2022 to Tony for your approval. And we add a couple of benches, we reseed the oval, and we replicate the wellhead. And it's pretty rotten, not terribly rotten, could go another year or so, but we have the money, and if we can find someone to do it, now would be the time. By the time we get it decided, get a contract, get an estimate, have an RFP, we may be beyond 2022 anyway, but I think we should at least get the project in motion. So, and, we recognize that it's not the Friends of the Town Landing's money, it's the town's money. And if the circle wants to come and make a recommendation, we hope to have the circle as part of our group, anyone should be able to come and make a recommendation. Along with some of the town employees who are closest to that
So you're gonna work with the town administrator for any projects that you want, and then he's gonna bring it to the council for our approval? I don't see a problem with that.
How are these funds gonna be accounted? Are they gonna be, will they need to be approved by the annual financial town meeting on an annual basis to let the
No.
committee?
No.
No.
There's I forget the wording of the specific stroke, but there's basically a thing that directs or says that the council will use its established authority to move money from here to there to do things that are under the purview of what they have been given authority to do. We can consider whether it's needed. It hasn't
Okay.
been for these other funds. We don't have those on record, that I know.
Well, not for like the cemetery fund,
Mhm.
or those types of things. It's an established fund by the town council for a specific project. It's generally not going back to the town meeting for further approval, because it's donated money.
Right, as opposed to
It's not
tax money.
taxpayers' dollars.
A lot of this would have never happened without Tony and Karen.
Yep.
We really were a committee, but we were guided by Karen, so we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Work.
Thanks for the work on it.
So what was the motion again?
The motion was to establish, and I'll acknowledge that it is established, but I want a council vote to do it so that we have something to refer back to. Establish a restricted fund to be expended by the authority of the town council for the purposes stated in the document, and the document would become part of the motion. Yes,
So-
sir.
I just get a clarification. Is this money dedicated to fixing the cliff of town landing, which for me is the main capital expenditure? What we've done now, putting posts around the metal tops on, at great expense, but we still haven't fixed the cliff. So I want to know, are we going to use more money to make that town landing more like a playground than a cliff? Or are we going to fix the cliff?
I will defer answering that question until we have someone who can speak to that. That has been looked at, for example, most recently with the MRP funds that we decided to apply to South Shore because we were advised specifically that to do so for Town Landing because of the fetch from Town Landing out to the next land, which is a fair number of miles away, results in those efforts being unproductive. Basically no one has come forward with a proposal that says, here's how you can do what you're describing. I acknowledge that it's happening. No one has brought us a solution or brought a solution forward. So I would not envision these funds would be used for that.
So there is a restricted account with the funds that are left over from the
Yes.
project?
So,
Thank you. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Next is the consent file.
Motion to place a consent calendar on file unless anybody would like to discuss it.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And the payment of bills.
Motion to pay the bills as written.
Second it.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
That completes the agenda. I declare the meeting adjourned. Yes.
It's not on the agenda.
Well, not with, the council meeting is adjourned. So we're outside the, who are you speaking to?
I'm actually speaking to the people in the room.
I would be leery of doing that only because it's not noticed.